Right, thank you for coming and listening to my session. I'm going to be talking about data governance and the business benefits of that. I mean, I think it's a really exciting topic, and it's not like how it has been in the past, really not as well thought of. But I really think it can change the future of how we go forward. And I think it's, not that impediment to progress that we have seen. So I think, how do we move forward with a programme of work for this? So in this session, I'm going to explore what the new world of data governance is, how we can help a business benefit, and why it's important, and simple, agile steps to sort of move forward. So a little bit about myself. I'm an enterprise data architect at COEO. I'm a founder of Data Toboggan, an Azure Synapse set of conferences. We have our next conference on the 24th of June. We usually do 2 a year. So we're just sort of starting to spin up for that now. I'm a SQL Bits buddy, and I help her here at SQL Bits. I'm on the board of directors of SQL Saturday, and I've the privilege of being a Microsoft MVP for the last 5 years. I also have a PhD in management of database systems, and you'll see a little bit of my research a bit later on through the presentation. So breaking this session down, there are 5 areas that I want to discuss today. What is data governance? Its elements, the type of data issues that exist, then thinking a little bit about why data governance, the general benefits of governance, and those benefits related to business, and why it's really important to have an embedded data governance program. Then there's many frameworks out there for people to use for data management, and we'll discuss the main features that are available. Then I believe it's important to constantly think about how we can change and improve. So ultimately, changing our world. And I propose a different way of thinking about data governance and show how we can increase business benefits and innovation. Now, this is sort of a new sphere of influences for a framework called the Codex. And then finally, I'm going to just touch on Microsoft Purview as well, what elements are out there, and help sort of dive into that data governance through that new sort of world of automation. So let me start by setting the scene. What is data governance? And the standard definition from the DAMA data management body of knowledge is this one that you've got on here, which is the exercise of authority, control, and shared decision-making, planning, monitoring, and enforcement over the management of data assets. Now, this statement includes many elements from data management. Control to people involvement. And DAMA, if you haven't sort of come across it before, it's been around for about 30 years and sort of leading that sort of like body of knowledge for data management. Now, looking a little bit more into sort of like definitions, because I think the DAMA one's quite hard to sort of get your head around a bit. And Wikipedia comes up with something slightly different, which is like that data governance encompasses the people, processes, and technology required to create a consistent and proper handling of organizations' data across the business enterprise. And I think that's like quite a bit easier to sort of understand. So I think it's like the embodiment of managing data efficiently and effectively that helps us gain trusted business value from data. I believe data governance has sort of 2 sides, really, that creation of rules and policies to help management of data, and the hands-on managing data by sort of data stewards. And Peter Aiken came up with something that I read recently, which said they are the implementation arm of data governance and that first line of defense, and I thought that really nicely summed up what data stewards actually do. So I know this is like a really, really huge diagram. It looks very huge on the screen, doesn't it? But it shows some of the complexity we start thinking about when we're talking about data governance. Now, it is based on the Dama de Bock body of knowledge and sort of my experience sort of working in this field over a number of years. I do sort of think diagram sort of tells a lot of pictures, and it sort of shows that holistic picture. Now, thinking about the central elements, you can kind of see those sort of highlighted, and then I've got some like sub-areas within that, but then obviously it drills down further from where you are there. But it sort of covers all data sources and provides those fundamental requirements for analytics and AI projects. So data strategy is often a starting place for data governance. And I think it's really, really important to have that like strategic plan to drive change with an actionable roadmap. And I think the other sort of key sort of parts we've got here is to carry out a data maturity assessment and be able to sort of like think about mapping changes against things to progress and sort of demonstrate that business value. And in this sort of new world of data governance, I believe action should be driven by a business use case. Accessing that business value of the data really helps sort of prioritize where we're going forward in future. And I think we've got like two new areas that are coming over the last few years, and these are sort of like that data ethics and data sustainability. Thinking about like data ethics as that really, really important sort of area when we're sort of thinking about we want to move to like AI systems. And data sustainability, I sort of think as like ensuring that you've got processes and funding in place to enable that continued sort of program of work. And finally, sort of thinking about tools that can help deliver part of this program. We can think about like Microsoft Purview and can help sort of remove those sort of like data silos. So there are a lot of interconnected areas to consider as we sort of like move forward in this world. There are many data issues that we see within business. And if we don't look to data governance, we won't be able to get business to be competitive or protect the data sufficiently. So for data strategy and oversight, not having that data strategy or governance operating model could really result in sort of reputational damage and financial loss to a business, as we've kind of seen in the past. And it's really important to understand that data enables control of the narrative and that we can prevent misinformation with that. So we have quite a lot of technical issues, things like fragmented data states. They can result in that data being out of date and affecting what decisions are made. Not knowing what lineage we have makes data troubleshooting issues hard. And we can cause sort of like more manual effort to sort of fix issues if we don't sort of think up front and things about the governance side of things. And then sort of thinking about if data isn't classified and data breaches that may occur, and that regulatory compliance is not adhered to. And then obviously governance is quite tied up as well, isn't it, with sort of like if there's a data leak or we've got like competitors wanting to gain access to the data. And more importantly, it can cause harm to people with certain kind of leaks and things like that. So, and then this sort of lack of data culture in business can cause sort of poor efficiency and reduce revenue. And I think my final sort of point just to discuss here is about that lack of responsibility and data ownership, and how it kind of affects usage. I mean, ownership of data is crucial to control who has access and define how that's kind of used. I mean, there's lots more examples, but these were just a few that I thought it was worth mentioning here. Why do we need data governance, and how can technology help? I see the overarching aim as creating that trusted data that is good quality and secure. Data governance should sort of be seen as like that critical progress and not really like an impediment really, and an enabler to business and that self-service analytics that drives those real-time decisions. And as we know, data's everywhere now, isn't it? And it's really difficult to know what data a business has, and gaining visibility into that entire data state is absolutely key as we sort of go forward now. So making it easy to find assets and open to all, and in an enterprise that helps improve sort of like data culture as well. So it's important to know what quality the data is, because analytics are based on that, and we can make those right business decisions from that. Standardizing data quality management and have that consistent way to measure the quality of the data helps with the confidence of data. For compliance as well, we see kind of a lot of things coming out for data governance these days, meeting those regulatory standards and knowing what risks are associated with that. So managing sensitive data in multiple clouds as well, and apps and endpoints, provides a business-wide picture with the tools that we have. And then being able to sort of know the impact of that data change and how it will sort of prevent issues occurring. I really think technology enables and empowers an organization to govern, protect, and manage their data in much more comprehensive ways than we've ever had before. But I think the most important thing I kind of see is like, it's really important to note that a business is different. Every business has different entry points to governance. They have different things that are key to their business. So it's really difficult if you want to come and define and sort of work out a new sort of governance program. So there's many business benefits to data governance. So to be successful, it needs to be grounded in sort of the business side of things. Many governance programs we've seen have failed in the past. They've been costly. People start with that program of work that's sort of like, well, we need to have this, and we need to have all these committees, and we need to have all these policies and processes. And we've defined like a 2-year program of work, which is really hard to maintain. You're trying to get 2 years worth of budget, and it really needs to sort of like move to sort of use case example as we move forward with that. So, and then it's about driving that data culture, making it easy for people to find the data they want, request access to data, and to use the data. So above all, governance is driving that business transformation. It enables better business decisions and new lines of business to become available. Poor data quality is often seen, and by removing those data silos, we can improve the quality of that data, enable better business decisions. And in today's age, we have those regulations that need to be followed, such as GDPR on preventing data loss. Knowing what data you have around the organisation is key, and having that one central catalogue that people can use to find data they want adds control and uniformity. Then thinking about like that adoption of data governance brings with it data culture and a different way of working. And it increases that adoption of data use within the business. Every business needs secure data to prevent breaches or misuse of data, and thinking about the ease of use and the data in a secure fashion to help protect it. Data governance can help us climb to new heights. Just as if you think about taking a cable car, ascending to reach the summit, it sort of bolsters the people side of governance, and embedded technology solution can help a business. The multifaceted data we see can benefit from treatment. Now, data governance thrives bringing order from chaos, on which the data is sort of seen within so many different sort of areas within the business side. And it really is that enabler, I think, and helps sort of reduce that data risk. And it drives success in so many different ways within a business. And having tools within the system as well, that helps enable innovation, I find. And Wikipedia talks of like innovation, we see as that practical implementation of ideas that result from the introduction of new goods or services, and improvement in offering goods or services. And in the words of Ladley, I like to think like governance is a process that in part has an enforcement component. It's a disciplined, formal process to manage data. To that end, I think starting from a strong base and using a current framework can help. So I want to talk a bit in brief about the frameworks that I refer to in my day-to-day role. So this is a really well-known model that people in the data management side quite often use. It's called a DAMA wheel, and it's one of the main frameworks of data management. So it was founded in about 1980, and it's a definitive introduction to data management. It defines a standard industry view of data management, sort of its functions, terms, and best practices, without sort of detailing those methods or techniques. And best practices are massively important to helping us sort of like move forward in this area. And it's not a complete authority, however. And I think when you start like reading the publications and things like that, you kind of see that. But this framework's got these 11 functional areas for data management that are depicted in this sort of wheel here. But you can see at the heart of everything is data governance. And there are various different ways to get started, but usually you sort of start with data governance and maybe think about metadata management and then reference management and then moving on to that data quality side. So that's where I start as a business sort of going forward, thinking about that sort of area. But I do think there's two ways to think about kickstarting a data governance program. And it's not necessarily always about a framework. I mean, you can start from that point of view, or you can start from the technology point of view. And in different businesses that you go to, you can see there are different benefits of moving between one or the other. But you need to have both, but it's not necessarily always from that one sort of point of view. So since that original sort of DAMA wheel that we've got, we've kind of seen that data management is continually sort of like progressing in things. And this is sort of like an evolved wheel. And it depicts the core activities sort of surrounding sort of like the life cycle sort of areas in the, on the inside. So you've got those activities, you think of policy, stewardship, ownership, culture and change, strategy, and all of these sort of things form the core sort of like data governance, but then you've got the day-to-day things as you're progressing sort of in the center of this wheel. As with everything, there's always more than one framework. And this is the Cloud Data Management Capabilities Framework, which was launched in 2021. Now, as we're all probably aware with looking at the Azure side of things, you can see references to this within the Azure portals. And I think it was adopted, the first set of adoptions in Microsoft Azure since about September 21. So it's really important to note that they're trying to align a lot of processes and things into this model. Now, this model has these sort of 14 key controls, and it's being utilized between, 60–70% of all large organizations. So it's something to keep your eye on and assign your sort of best practices to. But thinking about any frameworks, and they've all got this sort of starting point, because although you might want to enter at a different point in time, you really, really need to know where you're going to start with your program. So you need to start with thinking about benchmarking. So the EDM Council started with this assessment model, which is this data maturity capability assessment model. And that allows you to sort of like assess your benchmark, progress your existing program. And it ensures that you get sustained funding, strategic buy-in. And it defines the strategic organizational technology and operational capabilities, and enables you to establish and sustain a mature data management and analytics function. As with anything, there's another framework that we can think about from a business side to get that data management maturity assessment, but this one's by the CMMI Institute. And this covers best practice and provides support for implementation of processes, and it has sort of like 5 categories: strategy, we've got data governance side, that data quality side, operations, and then there's that platform and architecture side. Within that model, it has data management process areas with categories and supporting process. And for example, data governance can include governance management, business glossary, metadata management. And these process areas sort of serve as principal means to communicate sort of themes and goals and practices. And the accomplishment of process areas for practices allows the organization to sort of build capabilities and infrastructure to support practice, accomplish maturity in data management. And as you can see on the right-hand side of the screen, there's these sort of 5 different capability and maturity level definitions as well. We show that increasing level of maturity as you go through. So there's not only these 2 frameworks that we've kind of seen, you also, if you look in industry, you can see there's frameworks from Gartner as well and some other ones. And then Microsoft Purview even released a white paper maybe 6 months ago or a year ago, I can't quite remember. And they've got sort of a whole set of different sort of levels that you can map yourself against, but it's not like a formal framework. So the next question we need to think is about how do we choose which model we want to use? Data Crossroads wrote this article, and I thought it was really interesting to see because it compares sort of the 3 frameworks, the DAMA, the DCAM at the beginning, but it also covers TOGAF. And that's the Open Groups Data Architecture Framework for Enterprise Architecture. And it drew 2 really big sort of conclusions, really. And that DAMA and the EDMC Council ones are the most used in industry. And there was a significant number of companies that either adjust or develop their own models. So it's not that there's always one way to go, but people pick and choose kind of quite a lot. But the DAMA one and the DCAM models, you can see they differ in quite a number of different ways. There's a number of building blocks, the nature of their business blocks, and sort of the content within those business blocks as well. I just thought it was really interesting to sort of show that you can't just say, I'm going to follow this model, because it might not include the elements that you want for your whole sort of program. But that's really, your decision needs to be based on exactly where your business is. How can data governance change our world? Is, I think, a really interesting question. One way is through that sort of data erudition, enabling business-wide knowledge gained from learning about business data. I mean, knowledge is often held by a few, but moving it into model and those sort of shared sort of areas and things like that, I think it can really help a business flourish. And I believe tools like Purview really help sort of drive that forward. With their sort of like data map and catalog, it shows you that whole sort of picture of where an organization is. And you can start to get that process thinking about like removing silos and increasing data quality. So knowing what data your business has and what it's used for and its potential uses requires sort of looking globally and holistically across the business. And I think this can be achieved by changing your thinking and thinking like of a systems mindset. And I'm going to explain that on the next slide. Or using a lodestar called the Codex to sort of help guide data governance and management systems mindset. And that's a world sort of enabling innovation based on data outcomes that can be trusted. And I'll talk a bit about the Codex in a little bit as well. But let's just have a little talk about thinking differently and about a systems mindset. Now, this has been around since about the 1950s. And systems thinking is an epistemology, and it's applied to human activity. It's based on 4 basic ideas: emergence, hierarchy, communication, and control. Now, these characteristics of a system. And there's been many theorists in the past that have talked about this, such as Ackoff, Checkland, or Seng, and they look at how they look at addressing that real-world complexity within organizations. So systems thinking is that way of making sense of complexity of the world by looking at terms in that of a whole and the relationships rather than splitting them down into all those little individual parts. And it's been used as a way of exploring and developing effective actions in complex contexts. And managing data is obviously an area of complexity and lots of interconnections. So what does systems thinking way of thinking invoke? Well, a system does something. And thinking about that whole, well, it's greater of the sum of its parts. We think about hierarchy of entities and wholes and becoming a part of something bigger. It's about that worldview, our set of perceptions and attitudes and belief, and how we think about motivations and all that interconnectedness that we see within all the different parts of like an organization maybe. And so it's thinking about, not thinking I suppose about those sort of like silos, but thinking about how we allow emergence and moving sort of from analytics to synthesis. And emergence is an outcome of the synergies of these sort of parts, and how you sort of see all these things interacting. Drawing systems thinking together with database systems. This codex was created as part of my PhD research into database systems as a way to improve and understand complexities we face on that day-to-day basis. It's a socio-technical approach to using systems thinking to understand what influences are for successful management of data and database systems. And this is how I got started. That was in case you fell asleep in the middle of the presentation. So when I carried out my research, there was lots of high-level interconnections and sort of sphere of influences and lots of complex interactions. So I was looking at like database management systems, and I did quite a lot of research. Community kind of helped. And this was the graph it came up with from as the output. So you can kind of see there's just like so many interconnections. And this is what we deal with on a day-to-day basis, managing data systems And you can see why it gets a bit more complicated with, when I did this, this was like in 2017. So there's been new changes and there's even more on top of this. So there's so much like complexity we're dealing with and different sort of dimensions. It makes it quite hard to move forward. And areas such as like data governance, data ethics and sustainability, they were not as prominent as they were there. They were sort of like, these were like the high level sort of areas, but they were sort of tucked a bit further down. But as we sort of juggle all these interconnections in this data space, this sort of moves us towards a codex. So this codex was a blueprint for database management. And the acronym was selected by AOUG with the revolutionary introduction of the codex in the 1st century AD, which changed a storage medium from a roll to a codex, which was like a book format. So it's brought challenges, migrating data, but significant benefits of increased speed of data access, that reference and durability of like the parchment. So not all texts were sort of migrated from sort of rolls to codex. And those that were not migrated became sort of defunct. So the text case was changed from capitals to lowercase, minuscule copies were made, and that resulted in sort of further change. And those original sort of magisterial manuscripts have not kind of survived. So this scholarly activity led to the revival of sort of reading classic documents and development of the centre of culture. So, and there's 5 areas to the codex, and you can sort of see from that. I'm just going to go through sort of the high level so you can kind of see that categorization of findings. So to show how the framework works, I've mapped some of like our data governance elements onto the codex for that holistic view. And the first element we have is control. And that includes thinking about business, people, communication, governance, thinking about data quality and culture. It's about the business side of things and the things like that data ownership and data stewardship sort of reside in this area. Control of operations includes that management side, think cloud, technical and security side. And you can think of data lineage for root cause analysis here, or things like orchestration and that sort of like automation side of things, and things that we generally do on a day-to-day basis. So data is at the heart of what we do. This includes storage, the type of data, visualization, governance, availability, understanding your current state, and what is core to improvement and innovation. Now, understanding a data catalog helps you know what your current state is and where it is, and having that initial data maturity assessment sort of helps moving forward with that improvement. So if we think about a data catalog, we need to think about its management, who's going to manage it, the individual assessment elements, and how that catalog is going to help us sort of gain that business value, and how change is going to be managed, and best practice change and requirements. Then expediently includes areas such as understanding design, agile patterns, knowledge, skills, learning, architecture, blueprints and frameworks. So you think explicitly here, you could include some business glossary or knowledge items and how you sort of like learn, because that helps speed up where you're going forward, and even policies and things like that, how you create those, and that helps move you forward. And finally, those unpredictable events, change and best practice, those new requirements, new tech, and that sort of blue sky thinking. Tools like Purview's lineage can help change that aspect if we're thinking about like impact analysis. So the codex is an agile approach to decipher that complexity of interconnections. And it has the potential to create that autonomous way to deliver best practice. And the codex is a way of thinking about continuously changing best practice, whilst acknowledging those sort of like environmental costs that we see, and that consideration of like communication between teams within the business, and sort of like that hybrid sort of collaboration is really, really important. And how that way of working will improve that sort of data culture within the business. So as I've shown, there are many frameworks already providing part of the picture. Now, the Codex is that overarching way to think about 5 core sort of areas, and how complexity adds another dimension that must be considered when customizing those frameworks for your business. From that spray diagram that I showed earlier, you can see the introduction of these from the headline sort of areas here. I mean, they consider that no business is the same. You've got like that maturity varies between those businesses. But I feel that the overall aim is to improve data quality for those analytics and advanced analytics. And for each of these 5 areas of the Codex framework, a systems mindset needs to be applied to drive that interconnected data culture for data governance, on top of that framework of elements that are used. So a few core areas to sort of help you get started with these. I think that getting business buy-in from your leadership, that's really important, and aligning to a business data strategy. Carrying out that data maturity assessment and defining those use cases. And look at value versus effort assessment for those use cases. Have a systems viewpoint and think of the Codex. So be aware, frameworks and use of the relevant parts of those to customize your business needs. And align that data owners and data stewards and embed those continuously within that data culture approach. That can take quite a long time to embed within sort of businesses, but it's really important that you think about assigning ownership. And then defining a business glossary, always thinking about those actionable use cases when you do that, because it could turn into a really huge piece of work there. Create a data catalog and think about automation of tools, such as like Microsoft Purview. So taking this back to where Microsoft Purview sort of sits as part of this system, it's part of the Microsoft Intelligent Data Platform, which has those operational databases. You've got your Azure Synapse Analytics and Microsoft Purview. Now, Microsoft Purview and the Codex and various parts of the framework in business, they're sort of an enabler to growth and innovation. Now, Purview is quite a new tool in the marketplace of tools for data governance side of things, and it's based on that Apache Atlas Open API system, which means it's really extensible and allows that data governance platform to sort of grow. There's 2 elements at the moment which sit within that, and there's a risk and compliance portal, and there's also a unified data governance portal. There's 2 different access points at the moment, but I think they will be merged together. So there'll be one sort of portal going forwards to cover those different areas. So it's got quite a lot of different sort of areas, Purview, and it brings that world of data governance to ease. It provides automation. You've got that bird's eye view, which fits in with like thinking about things from a systems point of view. And it lets you see what your current state of your assets are. And it's important as data is growing that we start thinking about trying to automate parts of that. So we've got various different elements within this portal, and when we start thinking about this data map area, I mean, which can be thought of as like a knowledge map. It's like all your data collected together, and that's captured through sort of like scanning of that metadata of all your objects. And it's really a bottom-up approach to data governance. You can classify your data, so you can think about whether it's like a person's name or whether it's their credit card. You can label that data. You think about that whole collection of grouping data together, which I think takes you back to having that more holistic approach to things, and you can fit that into your different business units as well. And then there's Meta Model, which is quite a new feature, which allows more of that business side to sort of like fit together with the actual metadata that you're collecting within the business. We have a data catalog, which allows you to search and look at assets and sort of certify those assets as being like really good value. You've got that business glossary with your terms and templates and lineage, which will enable you to sort of like actually trace where all your data is. And it helps with those subject matter experts, your data stewards, officers, and sort of to move forward with that data creation within the business. And then sort of like that, being able to sort of like tag all of these assets and things right into the glossary is like massively useless to bring their business along with the IT part. Within the system currently, there's these sets of 5 sort of areas for different reports, giving you that high-level view, because I think it's always important that you can think about, whether you want sort of like KPIs, or so you can kind of know your data. We're all data people, and we like to see that, don't we, within sort of like tools and visualization or within Power BI. Data policies, you can see that things like that are coming with those roles and workflows and sort of self-service. Some of the things are still in preview at the moment. Some of them are already in production, but things are progressing all the time with that access and policy controls. You'll see kind of quite a lot coming in the future. And then data sharing, that's still in preview at the moment, but you can see how that's helping across the whole business. So it's sort of, this is the technical side, but you need to think about all the business side as well. A few weeks ago, there was a webinar, which I think is important to know about, and that covered that all parts of Purview, I suppose, that risk and compliance side and the unified data governance side. So you've got that identify data landscape, which starts with the discovery and knowing your data and having that single view of your data. Then they've got a whole element about protecting sensitive data and putting that as that first line of defense, understanding classifications, labeling, and those sort of rights. So you can kind of see it's all starting to sort of build up to that bigger picture. You need to be able to manage your risk and seeing what's going on internally as well, not just externally. And then trying to prevent that data loss from businesses and having that balancing act between trying to protect, obviously, our data and obviously making it usable, because we can all get to a point that the data that we start using is so difficult to get to. People then take a copy of it and then start using it because that's the easiest way to use the data for their day-to-day work. So like data sharing is kind of massively important. And then governing that data lifecycle, that proactive data governance leads to sort of better security. And it really sort of like reduces risk and helps sort of stewards within the business. So another way of looking at it is from this sort of like higher level picture of how Microsoft's putting everything together, thinking like this circumference with sort of like Microsoft Purview right at the center with that data map. And then you can see you've got information protection, threat protection, access management, right up to the security level. So that's just another bird's eye view of how important it is and how it sort of fits into the new sort of suite of tools that are coming. So in summary, I've discussed what is data governance, sort of interconnections, influences, and data issues. And I've shown why it's important to have data governance, and I really believe it's a massive enabler. and discussed the current frameworks to draw upon, and looked at it from a systems mindset and that using the codex. And giving you a little idea of the high-level bits to do with Purview and how that can fit into the business side of things when you need to go and say, well, we really need to have this tool to help us move forward with things. But just deploying Purview will not fix your business problems. You really need to think about that business side of things. So I think start thinking with a maturity assessment and understand the data landscape. Understand your business values and have a systems mindset, thinking about that universe on elements at every stage, and look to frameworks that you can use to move forward. And every business is different. So above all, I think it's imperative to obtain business buy-in to be successful. Think about those frameworks for that required area and think holistically about the situation. So I'll leave you with this data governance story. So I'd like to say thank you very much for attending my session, and I'd be really grateful for any feedback.